generally as being very conservative, certainly the banking sector. Are you saying that Canada could really go bust?
I'm very concerned about it, Olivia. I am. And for the two reasons you started with, right? So the credit and debt has been rising very rapidly. So the absolute level of household debt is concerning. That's number one. Number two, home prices, which frankly collateralizes a lot of the debt, have also been rising quite substantially. Vancouver at this point is the second least affordable city in the world.
So why wasn't there this massive housing correction like we had in the U.S.?
Part of it was at that point the affordability when housing prices sort of cracked here was still okay up in Canada. It wasn't out of whack. It's risen substantially since sort of the tough point of being able to pay for your home. But more importantly, in Canada, and the reason I'm worried about it right now, is crude oil prices. The economy has been driven by crude oil. And in particular, I think the stat I saw was 70% of employment created in Canada since 2011 came from the province of Alberta.
Wow.
Is this a problem born of having done things right in the past? I remember reading all these articles 5 years ago about how Canada did everything right. Its banks were properly capitalized. No problems there. Do you need small problems to avoid big problems?
Well, so the banks, by the way, I think are still very well run. Okay. Let me say that, Brendan. I think the banks are doing a reasonably good job. Where I get very concerned is in this private mortgage market that's starting to sort of emerge. And here you have situations which I find crazy. You have individual homeowners, respectable, job-worthy, high credit quality homeowners that are borrowing off their home equity lines and lending to individuals that can't get access to credit. So I take my home equity line down at 3.5%. I lend it to someone who can't get a home equity line or a mortgage for 10 to 12% for 1 year.
How much of this is on the buttress of the Pacific Ocean with what I've read about with Seattle in the U.S. and Vancouver in Canada, which is the massive amount of money coming in from China and Asia? It's got to factor into these debt dynamics.
It does, Tom, although what I will say is it's actually probably factored more into, rather than the debt dynamics, into the housing price dynamics in those parts of the country, right? But frankly, the slowdown in China adds fuel to this fire, right? So the slowdown in China means there possibly is less demand coming in.
This is a big theme. Mike McKee and I talk about this on radio all the time. One of the big themes here is, will investment in New York City stop with a stronger dollar? And as you say, the other dynamics outside is even more of an impetus to bring money to Canada or to the United States.
That's right. I think so.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's... What else on Canada?
Vikram, these crazy home equity loans that you're talking where you take out the home equity loan and then loan it to someone else, what's driving this? Are you getting mortgage brokers going into neighborhoods like you had in the U.S.?
No, I mean, look, this is very simple. This goes back to the first point I started talking about earlier in the hour, which is when interest rates are manipulated down this low, people search for yield. Okay. And so how do I get return on my capital? What do I do? Okay. I'm worried. Equity prices seem full. You know, what do I do? So I got a home equity line that's a 3% cost of capital, 3.5%. I can lend it, and sometimes there are professional organizations that will sort of modify and create this.
And a final word on this: through 3 or 4 interviews this week, there is no question the dynamic of oil is to $35 a barrel, depending on who you talk to.
And huge consequences, of course, for the Canadian labor market. $30 oil.
That's right. That's right. So even though it's all Alberta-centric, the job creation, many of those individuals fly in and out from other parts of the country.
70% of job creation in Canada since 2000.
Approximately.